The other day while I was doing some RE search on Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, I stumbled onto some previously overlooked environmental storytelling that suggests that Nikolai's actions in Raccoon City may have inadvertently saved Jill Valentine's life along with the rest of humanity.
Put on a good show and maybe I don't need the vaccine. Agreed?
As I was recreating a 3D Blender model of the Raccoon General Hospital for my upcoming Outbreak Breakdown series, a series breaking down Outbreak, I noticed that all the pictures in the 4th floor of the hallway were all fucked up. Most of the portraits were either ripped off the walls, tilted, or offset, almost as if someone had been desperately searching for something here behind these paintings. At first I thought, maybe this was just Tyrell doing Tyrell things. You know, taking advantage of a city in chaos to loot and steal shit. But seeing as this place is a hospital and not a Nike store, I figured there must be something else going on here. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that there's no real signs of a struggle up here, there are no shell casings, no dead bodies, and depending on the RNG, you might not even get enemies up in this area. So I seriously doubt that it was BOWs or survivors struggling with the infected that caused this mess in the hallway. It wasn't until I remembered that Tyrell Patrick in the original Resident Evil 3 was most likely another UBCS supervisor. Like Nikolai, Tyrell was probably ordered to collect or destroy Umbrella's research data from the hospital. This would explain why Tyrell is snooping around the 2 floors of the hospital that contain hidden wall safes. In the remake of RE3, Tyrell is just another guinea pig like Carlos and the others.
You heard what he said. We can't turn him over to the company. That's not our call to make. That's Mikhail's call.
But here, he makes it very clear that he's in the know with Nikolai and Umbrella's true intentions for sending in the UBCS. He's just shocked that Nikolai betrayed one of his own.
Sometimes it's easy to forget one's loyalties. Just like that traitor.
He even refers to Carlos in the basement of the hospital as another guinea pig.
I had no idea another guinea pig was still alive.
This suggests that Tyrell was most likely the one looking for the vaccine base on the 4th floor before Nikolai murdered him in the data room. Tyrell died just feet away from the sick room key, which would have granted him access to room 402, where the hidden wall safe was, behind the portrait.
Tell them we found a cure, you stall for time!
So thanks to Nikolai's betrayal here, Carlos was able to find the key and the safe, which led to the creation of the T-virus vaccine that Carlos administered to Jill after she was infected by Nemesis. Fortunately for Jill, this vaccine wasn't modified by Israel, so it actually worked and required no additional boosters. However, there were still some unwanted side effects. Mutations that would go on undiscovered for nearly a decade until Albert Wesker abducted Jill from the Spencer estate in the fall of 2006. After countless experiments on Jill, Wesker discovered that Jill's immune system had developed antibodies that eradicated the dormant T-virus cells left over in her body from Nemesis. It's not really clear how Wesker discovered this or why he was looking for it. I originally thought, like maybe he noticed she was immune to his progenital STDs or something.
Remarkable. Still resisting at such an advanced stage.
Oh, wait, there's a document that just says it's an automated system that picked it up. Anyway, don't tell me Wesker wasn't hitting it. We know from this file in RE5 that Wesker was at least looking at Jill's sandwich, seeing as he filed a detailed report on Jill, highlighting how her pubes no longer match the drapes. Jill's anomaly here ended up saving her life, as Wesker decided to keep her around to farm those antibodies so he could dilute his extremely poisonous Ouroboros virus. By using Jill's mutated blood, Wesker was able to make his Doomsday virus more suitable for the masses. I know it sounds like Nikolai's actions here actually aided in Wesker's plans of complete global saturation, but you can't really credit that to Nikolai.
I have no intention of helping you.
Wesker was always going to saturate the globe one way or another, regardless if it came from Jill's booty or not. So, here's how Nikolai's actions actually ended up saving the entire world. Because of Wesker's decision to keep Jill alive as a super ninja sex slave or whatever he was using her for, Jill was able to be around Wesker at all times of the day. She learned his routines, she was aware of her actions, and because of this, she was able to inform Chris and Sheva that Albert was a diabetic.
I couldn't control my actions. Oh my God, I was still aware.
Jill knew that Wesker needed precise doses of the PG67AW serum at specific times throughout the day, a detail that the BSAA would have never obtained without her unique abilities.
Sarah said that the amount administered has to be precise, so if he injects too much, it should act like a poison. You need to find that serum. Ixella always kept it with her in an attaché case.
Jill! Come in! Jill!
And you gotta remember, she's the one who gave the retreat order to Chris and Sheva and Delta Team. So of course, she would be suppressing this information if it ever got into the hands of the BSAA.
As if I need to explain myself to you. Although, weren't you two given orders to retreat?
So it was you.
So thanks to Nikolai murdering Tyrell moments before he could steal or destroy the vaccine base, Jill was able to survive, mutate, sleep with Wesker, and instruct Chris and Sheva on how to defeat Wesker. And as for anyone saying that we don't actually know the official canon events that transpired within the hospital, and that we can't say for certain that it was Tyrell that messed up those paintings, or that he even died on the 4th floor, I have this to say. Tyrell dying in the data room is the only logical path for the game's narrative. This cutscene shows Nikolai outright betraying his own teammate.
I'm one of the supervisors. That's all you need to know.
For example, if Carlos met Tyrell in the basement lab and died down here instead of the 4th floor, Carlos wouldn't really have any reason to deliver this line to Jill upon his return to the chapel.
I've got some bad news. Nikolai's still alive.
In this alternate basement scene, Tyrell never mentions Nikolai by name, and Carlos doesn't know who actually rigged the safe to blow up, nor does Carlos get visual confirmation that Nikolai is even alive or actively trying to kill him. If this basement encounter is canon, then Carlos could have just been in the wrong place and the wrong time when the hospital blew up. But if Carlos witnesses Tyrell's murder and Nikolai plants those explosives, knowing full well that Carlos is inside the hospital, then it makes more sense for Carlos to deliver this news to Jill. Also, if Carlos goes into the basement first, then why didn't Nikolai steal the data in the vaccine base from the 4th floor? This tells me that the vaccine heist was clearly Tyrell's assignment. Nikolai was just here to increase his bargaining power by suppressing the information or stealing it from Tyrell. And my theory is also supported by the fact that the only pictures disturbed on the 4th floor form a direct line from the elevator to the data room. The pictures down the wing to the sick rooms have not been searched, suggesting that Tyrell knew what he was looking for and where to start, but he didn't know exactly where the wall safes were hidden, or he knew he needed the sick room key before beginning his search down there. So with that, I'm cementing Tyrell's death on the 4th floor of the hospital as official canon in the original Resident Evil timeline. No debate. It's 100% canon certified now. I don't care what the remake says or who Tyrell was as a person in the remake. That shit is trash narratively and timeline cancer. Also, with this event being canonized now, I'm gonna go ahead and claim that Murphy Seeker's murder in the sales office by Nikolai is also 100% canon now. This would explain why Carlos already assumed that Jill assumed that Nikolai was already an evil bastard.
But he was still conscious, wasn't he?
He was as good as dead. And it took fewer bullets to kill him now than it would have if he had transformed.
This route also makes the most sense logically and narratively, as I doubt Nikolai would waste time following Jill into a confined gas station just to check someone's oil. We know that the UBCS supervisors have been informed on Nemesis's presence in Raccoon City, hunting down STARS members. This is why Nikolai is hesitant on teaming up with Jill in the first place. So it doesn't make sense for him to willingly follow Jill into a highly explosive area that serves no purpose towards his goals. And only one of these two Nikolai encounters can take place per run, so it just makes more sense for him to already be inside a known Umbrella location, like the Umbrella sales office, for Jill to walk in on him and not the other way around. So what do you guys think? If this sales office Murphy murder is canon, then it means that only one of these two live selections must be canon. To encounter Nikolai at the sales office, Jill must either fight Nemesis at the restaurant by hiding or doing nothing after meeting Carlos in the kitchen, or by hiding and doing nothing at the press office after waking up Carlos. These four choices will lead Jill to Nikolai's murder of Murphy Seeker in the sales office. Now, as of writing the script for this video, I was thinking this RE search had reached a dead end for the canon events that we could solidify. But then, I remembered this line from Carlos.
It looks like our roles have been reversed from when we originally met, huh?
This one line never changes, regardless of the routes and choices Jill makes before getting here. Much like this line about Nikolai, this line suggests that one of the previous events is actually canon over the others. Carlos says this line to Jill right after rescuing her from the clock tower courtyard where she was lying unconscious, surrounded by flames. Sorta like Jill's first encounter with Carlos at the press office. Jill finds Carlos knocked out, lying on the floor in a burning building.
Ah, here's a good one. It's the stereotypical sleepy Mexican.
What? Oh man, what time is it?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were a wax sculpture.
This is the only scenario where Carlos's line in the chapel makes any sense.
Where am I?
Relax. You're fine.
If you say so.
So what do you guys think? This scenario makes the most sense out of all the options. Jill isn't throwing a lit oil lamp at a gas leak that could potentially barbecue all their asses, and Carlos didn't recklessly dive headfirst out of a third-story window, blindly following some crazy hoe he just met. Also, notice, when Jill and Carlos hide in the press office, it's the backdraft of the front office door exploding that takes out Nemesis. A perfectly reasonable event with appropriate reactions from all parties involved. Anyway, while we're on the subject, let's see if we can't determine the actual canon for the rest of the live selection event paths and consequences to those actions. According to Resident Evil Survivor, we know that Nikolai escaped Raccoon City, as we can read one of his reports that was dated days after the destruction of Raccoon City. And yes, Resident Evil Survivor is considered canon here, thanks to Resident Evil Zero's intro that specifically mentions the outbreak on Sheena Island.
An island that would become the second Raccoon City, Sheena Island.
So, this means that Nemesis did not kill Nikolai outside of the waste disposal room at the Dead Factory. This also means that Jill tried negotiating with Nikolai after he stole the last helicopter in the facility, which makes sense, seeing as he wouldn't want to destroy her only potential ride out. With no other options left, this route leaves Jill and Carlos with the Barry ending, where Barry Burton arrives just in time to save Jill before the city's destroyed. And I don't care what you saw in the remake, that shit's not canon. Even if Resident Evil 9 retcons it, Barry's the one that came back for Jill.
Yeah.
To get the Barry ending, Jill has to enter the Dead Factory from the basement level. Jill can do this one of two ways, either by being bitch slapped off the suspension bridge to the Dead Factory, or by diving off to avoid Nemesis. By going this route, Jill will encounter Carlos in the sewers, while Nemesis just walks in through the front door. From here, Nikolai beats Jill to the communications tower, but not before shooting at her. And I gotta say, that's it for my solid, locked-in canonical events for the original RE3. But let's look at the other routes and see if we can't discover or uncover something new from this discussion. Starting with Jill's first live selection event. There's really no real evidence suggesting her first encounter with Nemesis went one way or the other, so I'm just basing my beliefs here off of rational and strategical thinking. I believe Jill decided to run into the RPD. This move would make the most sense, especially after Jill witnessed Nemesis's awesome display of power all over Brad's face in the courtyard. At this point in her journey, she's under-equipped to face Nemesis, and she's well aware of how unstoppable tyrants are. By falling back in the RPD, she has home field advantage, potential access to weapons, and she's protected from the unknown elements that an outside street battle might throw at her. As for Nemesis not breaking down the doors, I think Jill got lucky here. We know that from later encounters, Nemesis likes to toy with his prey, which is probably how Brad survived an encounter with Nemesis previously.
He's after stars, members. There's no escape.
In the clock tower, he walks along the roof, following you, just stomping around making noise. While Jill is passed out for nearly 2 days, Nemesis just waits outside the chapel.
It's been waiting for you!
He's playing with us.
So, it's not far-fetched to believe he's doing the same thing here at the precinct.
It's like watching a bunch of retards trying to fuck a doorknob out there!
But I have another reason as to why he left Jill alone. The next time we see him in the RPD, he's equipped with a rocket launcher. So maybe Jill lucked out. Umbrella dropped him a rocket and he left to go pick it up, leaving Jill in the RPD for a moment. The next narrative decision Jill makes is to not explore Grill 13, despite Carlos running into the restaurant after firing at a horde of zombies. If Jill canonically meets Carlos at the press office, then this decision to avoid Grill 13 can easily be explained away by saying that Jill was simply following Carlos. She didn't stop to explore an empty restaurant, and at this point in the story, she doesn't even know she needs the clock puzzle pieces to proceed anyway, so she's not looking for them here. Also, Marvin's report mentions a restaurant owner being in possession of one of the clock puzzle gems, so it just makes more sense for both of the gems to have some connection to the restaurant over the press office. By taking this route, Carlos canonically rescues Jill from the Stogla horde, while Nikolai kills Murphy in the sales office, giving Jill reason to suspect him of being an evil bastard. As for the live selection event at the power station, there's no real evidence suggesting one choice over the other. Did Jill risk blowing out the city's power just to pop a few zombie heads, or did she escape out the back exit? I believe Jill would just leave out the exit for two reasons: to prevent attracting more infected, and to keep what little power the city has intact. As for Nemesis's rocket ambush at the substation, this is triggered if Jill completes the power station puzzle before visiting the sales office. There's no real evidence one way or another, so your guess here is as good as mine. However, I believe Nemesis would attack Jill outside of the sales office, seeing as the location belongs to Umbrella, like maybe Nemesis has access to Umbrella facility security cameras or sensors, so this would explain how he knew to approach the sales office. This is also supported by the fact that Jill can be seen on Umbrella security feeds all the way in Europe, over on Rockford Island and Code Veronica. So, going with what makes the most sense here, I'm leaning towards Jill visiting the sales office before finding the fuse at the power station. I know it's not an ideal encounter with Nemesis in a tight alley for Jill, but somehow she pulled it off. Next, we have the Earthquake live selection. This one is inconsequential, so there's really no right or wrong answer here. I go with Jill just pulling herself up out of the hole for obvious reasons. And that's pretty much it for the city. I believe Jill would have gone back to invite Dario to escape with them in the cable car, so she most likely found his dead body. Also, with Jill's security cam footage in Code Veronica, placing her right outside of Dario's container, I have a theory that she may have accidentally gotten Dario killed. Like, what if Nemesis paid this warehouse a visit and forced Dario out of hiding? As for Jill's special encounter with Mikhail, I think it's highly plausible that this happened. You've got to think, in a real-life setting, with an injured teammate and limited inventory space, you'd be checking in on friends and dropping off supplies. So, Jill and Mikhail most likely bonded here, which would also explain why he was down to sacrifice himself for Jill during the cable car fight. Which brings us to the cable car crash. Did Jill stupidly dive headfirst out of a speeding train window before exhausting all brake options? Or do you think she would at least try the emergency brake before crashing into the clock tower? I think you all know the answer to this. By applying the brake and riding out the train, Jill and the train car land in the center of the St. Michael Clock Tower courtyard. This decision will lead to Carlos helping and saving Jill during the Stage 2 Nemesis boss fight. This is significant because it doesn't make sense for Carlos to not be around during this fight. If Jill dives headfirst out the window instead of using the emergency brake, Carlos just won't show up for this fight, which doesn't make sense. Both Carlos and Jill know the plan is to ring the bell to signal an evac chopper, so Carlos would just be here to escape as soon as possible. He knows the plan.
I'm not gonna die on you, leave you in a cold, cruel, Carlosless world.
Also, the idea of Carlos just finding and handing Jill freeze rounds after finding them in a church is just ridiculous. So, this emergency brake choice is canon, no debate. Though, it's still questionable if freeze rounds actually exist in the RE universe. Moving on, to the balcony of the clock tower, Jill is confronted by Nemesis. She can either blind him with the lights or electrocute him. I tried analyzing the cutscene from the failed clock tower rescue to see if the balcony railing was still intact or not after tossing Nemesis's ass off of it. I know they wouldn't render an entirely different FMV for this one detail, but if it was intact, then I'd consider it conclusive evidence that Jill did not push Nemesis over the railing. Unfortunately though, the cutscene outside of the clock tower never shows the railing, so we have no idea if it was busted or not. Next, After Carlos's hospital adventure, Jill canonically hops off the bridge to avoid Nemesis, which brings us to the Dead Factory for Jill's final live selection event. Did Jill exterminate the monster, or did she leave to escape the city?
Next time, take the fucking hit!
Now, this might come as a surprise, but I think I've actually got an answer here. After Nikolai escapes, Jill tells Carlos the bad news in the communication tower of the Dead Factory. Not many people know this, but if Jill leaves Carlos at the controls and just heads back into the factory, upon her return, they'll receive a message from Barry Burton over the radio.
This is John Shep. Over. I've come to retrieve Jill. I can see there's no time left to bring her back.
This can only be triggered by leaving and coming back. If Jill tries the hatch first, Carlos will run off and this message will be missed.
Jill! That's it. We've got to find a way out of here, now!
So logically, I'm saying Jill and Carlos missed this transmission from Barry, as it doesn't make sense to go backwards, especially with so little time to waste. If this is the case, then I think Jill, after all the bullshit she's been put through, would actually take the time to put Nemesis down out of his misery after blasting him with the rail cannon. Because, at this point, she has no help on the way, she has no idea anyone's showing up, she's in no hurry to escape now, as she has no escape plan. It isn't until she rides down the elevator to the scrapyard that she learns about this helicopter actively looking for her.
Jill!
It's over, Carlos.
What are you talking about? Don't you hear that? There's a second chopper, and it's here to rescue you!
But who is it? Who could possibly be looking for me?
It doesn't matter, we just have to be there when it lands.
And that's it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments if I missed anything, if I overlooked something. What is your canon for the events of the original Resident Evil 3? And do you think Nikolai's actions actually ended up saving the world in 2009? Anyway, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more investigative lore content that covers Resident Evil and survival horror, please like, share, and consider clicking that bell icon to get notified when new videos drop. And if you can, please check out my other RE search videos. It'd really help the channel out, and would be greatly appreciated. Speaking of appreciation, huge thanks and shout out to all my RE-tards out there, keeping this channel alive. If anyone else out there would like to show their support, links to the Dead by Donovan Patreon, membership, and merch store are below. Please check them out. Thanks. Bye.